Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Cabral.
Welcome back, everyone. Great to be here with you. Excited to spend a little time on Saturday. Hopefully you're debuting or listen to this live as it debuts here on Saturday. So I love being able to answer these questions. Honestly, I do. And so many different people, it at least gives them an option to be able to ask for a second opinion, right? An alternate source of information besides conventional medicine, which is always preaching a pill for every ill, some type of surgery, medication, or simply dealing with a life of sickness and disease of the body. That is not what I want for you. It's not what I wanted for myself 20 years ago. And certainly I do believe that you'll be able to overcome it. No doubt about it. So let's go over that. Of course, I have to give you a little caveat that there's no medical advice being claimed here. There is no medical treatment plans or cures or diagnosis, okay? So I'm providing you natural health information. It's for educational-based purposes. It's what we do in our private practice to uncover the deeper underlying root causes that keep people ill. It keeps them sick. It keeps them gaining weight or losing too much weight, and certainly leads to a much faster aging-based process. I want to help you make sure that we end that once and for all so you can go on to live that healthy life you've been looking for, not just in body, but also in mind, right? Happiness is a big part of living a healthy life. So without further ado, let's get into our questions. I'm opening the document right now. Remember, I never look at these ahead of time, which means you're getting my raw, honest opinion as I read your question, just like I always say, which would happen if we ever met at an event. You ask me a question, it would be, okay, top of my head, what have I seen? What do I think would help you the most? And we can go from there. All right, typically 6 weeks is the lead time. So if you leave a question at stephencabral.com/ask Cabral. It typically takes about 6 weeks to get it answered. The first ones today are, it looks like 10/28 to 11/3. So October 28th to November 3rd. And today's date is the 11th of December. Yeah, so somewhere around that 6 week mark, which is, like I said, pretty typical. All right, if you want to follow along with the questions, head on over to stephencabral.com/2136. First question today is from Katie. Katie says, hey, Dr. Cabral, I know you've reviewed cookware before, and I was wondering your thoughts on Le Creuset. They're not non-toxic, but the stoneware and cast iron seems to be made of good materials. What do you think, and how can we know if pots and pans are made of high-quality, trustworthy materials? Okay, great question. Now, I have reviewed this, and again, I want to use my podcast as a library of information for you. So I try not to repeat the same topic twice, because again, we can just refer back to it. So there's a search box at stephencabral.com/podcasts, and I want you to check that out. So let's go there, stephencabral.com/podcasts. I'm going to do it with you because I actually have no idea where it is. I don't know the number, but if we go there, and I click on podcasts, then I scroll down below those, Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all of that. Okay, so we are searching in that search box. I'm just going to type in cookware and just one word, and we'll see what pops up for podcasts. All right, I've got 1771 for the ceramic cookware review, but I also have on 1720 my favorite picks for non-toxic cookware plus what to avoid. That podcast is going to tell you everything you need, much more in depth than I could give you right now, but I'm also going to give you 2 more tips. So I've got on there stoneware pan, ceramic cookware, stainless steel cookware, Pyrex, Corning bakeware, glassware. So you can also, so I would definitely listen to that show. All right, that's 1720. Then you could listen to 1771 if you'd like. But then at stephencabral.com/resources, you just click on that kitchen tab at the top, or a little clickable text, it will take you right down to my pre-approved products. Remember, I recommend hundreds of companies. A lot of people think that, yes, because I formulate for and I founded Equalife, which is basically our virtual practice, that's what I'm referring to. Only for my protocols, at-home labs, and nutritional supplements. Everything else is at stephencabral.com/resources. So check that out. Those are all non-toxic. All right. Now back to, I don't even know if this is how you pronounce it, but I'm using my best French, Le Creuset. And that's probably pretty poor as well. But I do know, I've researched that product and I know it well. And a lot of people have it because those last forever, right? So it's cast iron and then it is covered with a enamel, okay? Now, I've researched it. They actually show their research that it is low or no lead, low or no cadmium, and the iron isn't going to leach as much, which isn't a bad thing unless you have a higher iron, of course, because it's enamel. Now, their enamel is supposed to hold up to it's something insane, like 1,000 degrees. So unless it's more than 1,000 degrees, there's probably not going to be any leaching too of that enamel. So it looks like a pretty safe bet. As clean as the other ones, maybe not. But I can tell you that overall, it looks pretty trustworthy. All right. Again, I don't use them. I don't know, but I've looked them over. I reviewed them. They didn't make my A+ list, but certainly if you're using them, I think they absolutely can be non-toxic. All right. Hopefully that's helpful, Katie. Gemma is up next. And let's see here. Gemma says, hi, Dr. Cabral. Thanks so much for the wealth of information you provide. It has empowered me to make significant positive changes in my health. I've been told by 2 different Ayurvedic doctors that I'm tridoshic. My own personal take on it, with full awareness that it may not be accurate, is that I have a vata mind, a pitta voice and heart, and a kapha body. Is this possible? And do you have any specific tips for tridoshics to stay in balance? Many thanks. Okay. Yes, I do. And this is the confusing thing about Ayurveda. And it is not serving people to the greatest good. Here's the issue. You can't go by someone's doshas by their mind and their heart and their voice and their bowel movements. Like, no exaggeration, this is part of it, their sleep, and then their body. It does not work. It doesn't help anybody. And so many people are teaching that online. You can't do it. You just can't do it. Now, this is not you, Gemma, and I'm glad you brought it up because it's you can't help anybody that way. You can do it mindset-wise and you can do it body-wise. We always do body-wise because that's what breaks down. Like, there's just no doubt about it. So the best way to do it is go to stephencabral.com/podcasts, scroll through the images at the top, click on the Ayurvedic podcasts, listen to those Ayurvedic podcasts from the end to present day. It's going to give you them. It's going to show you the different bodies. If you're a kapha body, that is what you're trying to keep in balance, okay? Now, you can definitely have a vata mind. Most people do. Most people in a Western-based mindset have more of that. There's more anxiety. It's hard to turn it off. That, again, maybe it's a vata mind, but we're talking about what's called a Vikriti, right? It's what's influenced by the environment, not the genotype or the Prakriti, okay? This gets much more in depth. I think a lot of doctors and practitioners are doing a huge disservice to people by telling them they're tridoshic, but also just by separating out all the different parts. For me, I have a pitta-based mindset. There's no doubt about it. Should I do things that calm the pitta-based mindset? Sure. But most people are talking about what exercise should I do? What diet should I do? What, all these different things for lifestyle. And that is really more based on the body, okay? 100%. So if I were to give you things for vata calming and pitta calming, well, they would be the opposite of kapha. So we have to keep that in mind. I explain all of this at stephencabral.com/podcasts. Click on the Ayurvedic tab, go to the back, start with episode 900, and then it was 907, 914, 921, I believe, and that's going to really take you through it. All right? So hopefully that's helpful. Christine's up next. Hi, Dr. Cabral. Thank you for everything you do to help the whole world reach their health goals. I've learned so much about myself in terms of my own health, and I'm excited to try your 21-day detox. I do have a question regarding the efficacy and safety of a heavy metal detox called TRS detox spray. I did use it a few years ago myself for 6 months and was thinking of trying it on my 5-year-old son who is on the spectrum, but I'd love to hear your opinion first. Thanks so much. All right, Christine, great question. I'm going to send you over to stevencabral.com/podcast, and I'm going to have you type in TRS, or actually, I'll just have you type in zeolite. TRS contains purified water and zeolite, and it helps bind up heavy metals and remove them from their body. It's not as good as, again, not being biased, as a 6-week heavy metal detox that contains cracked cell chlorella, that contains cilantro, that contains vitamin C, that contains a biofilm disruptor. I like zeolite. I'm not against zeolite. I have no problem with people doing zeolite. But if you want a true functional medicine heavy metal detox that's clinically proven by science to actually bind up and get rid of 90+% of metals within 6 weeks, you want to do that, okay? So you can find that at stevencabral.com/shop. It's actually not even Equal Life-based products for half of them. They're other people's products because, again, we use the best of the best. But I just share with you, just like on my resource page, all of my favorites that I use. Okay, can you use zeolite and TRS spray on top of it? Sure you can, and there is clinical research behind it as well. So I like zeolite. I just don't use it when I need to get a clinical result, right? I can use it as an add-on. Now, it has nothing to do with liver detoxification. It doesn't ramp up phase 1 and phase 2 detox. So you would do it in addition to the 21-day functional medicine detox. And if that's new to you, honestly, it's the best place to start, the 21-day, and that's at stevencabral.com/detox. All right, so I just typed it in, and it's episode 1948, 1871, 1401, 1318, 1143, 1129, 779. If you type in zeolite, you will find all of those shows, and you will have all of the information you want on TRS spray and zeolite. All right, good questions. Let's move on. Let's see. Got to get back to my document. Marie is up next. Hi, Doc. I'm always so relieved to have this option of consulting such an amazing expert such as yourself. Thank you, Marie. My question is about eyelids. One of my eyelids, the left side, sits lower than the other, and one is more downturned. I have begun to notice that this increases a lot after a night of drinking alcohol. One of those days, I can even feel the difference in my eye, and the asymmetry is very visible as well. Having researched a little, I see that this may be called ptosis, and wondering what the reason might be and what I can do about it. Drinking less alcohol is obviously an option, but I'm concerned that this may be indicating of something more serious. Thank you for your help. Okay, so again, I don't want to move into medical diagnosis territory, but you're right. This is whether it's pronounced ptosis or ptosis, not pertosis, which is something different. You're correct, right? Like that's basically what it is. When one eyelid droops a little bit more than the other. Now, I will say, so a lot of people, I'm the first one to tell you that genetics are not your destiny. But when it comes to the way you look, 100%, like you can age less quickly. That's possible. But we look a whole lot often like our parents, right? And, whether we have high cheekbones, low cheekbones, larger nose, smaller nose, medium nose, larger, fuller lips, smaller lips, thinner lips, more hair, it's like a lot of that is genetic. And so you have to understand is that sometimes it's much more noticeable. Usually there's a family history that is kind of, that's genetic, like that one eyelid was a little bit lower than the other, or they had more droopy eyelids. Like I definitely come from a long line of droopy eyelids and under eye circles and all of that with my family. And I'll talk about that, in the future too, because you can be perfectly healthy and have those things. Now, can it be exacerbated with inflammation like drinking alcohol? 100%, right? And then it really comes out because the inflammation then can be systemic, and it can definitely lead to more puffiness of the eyes under and above, and it can lead then to more of that inflamed eyelid. So, the best thing you do is be on an anti-inflammatory diet, make sure you're getting your exercise, do your functional medicine detoxes, keep your body as healthy as humanly possible. And that's what I do. And that's obviously what I recommend for people. And that's it. But I know, and I can tell you that, again, I work with a lot of medical doctors as well. This is pretty common. It typically doesn't mean that there's an underlying disease. And one of the things that you may, again, you should always have your ophthalmologist check it out, right? So you should always just rule out that there's no underlying disease, neurological, liver-based, et cetera, right? So rule out that there's no trauma, concussion, neurological, etc. Rule that out. And then if it's just genetic, that's what's happening to the eye. And I'm not saying you should do this, but they do have surgeries where you can actually have the eyelid lifted back up. Again, I'm not recommending cosmetic or especially electoral-based surgeries unless you really need it. But for some people, it might be the right thing for them. And again, I'm not here to judge. I'm here to help and I'm here to support. And that's that. All right. Thanks for the question. Mary's up next. I'm addicted to your podcast. You are awesome. Thank you for all you do. Thank you, Mary. I have a swim team Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8:20 to 9:20 p.m. Only time we can get the pool. I don't know what to do regarding post-workout nutrition and sleep. I get home around 10:30 p.m. That's quite late to eat, and I still get to bed at a decent hour if I have to wait 2 to 3 hours after bed for optimal digestion. Is it best not to eat and go to sleep at a decent hour, or is it best to eat some soup or broth, something easy to digest? Is there something I can consume and go to bed an hour later? I consider a smoothie, but I put both fruits and veggies in my smoothie for taste purposes, and that probably has too much sugar in it before bed. Please advise. Thank you. Okay, great question. I've answered this many times, many times, but I'm happy to answer it for you, Mary, because you're so kind with your words and how you're phrasing your question. Okay, so here's the thing. You just did a pool workout. Our pool workout, it's hard. Carbs are not the enemy. They're just not. So yes, a smoothie is your number one thing. Why? You're taking all these healthy foods and you're putting it into a smoothie so you get enough protein, right? Because if you just have broth, there's not a whole lot of repair-based nutrients in that broth. Sure, there's some nice minerals. There's even some glycine and some sulfur. Great. That's not going to do a whole lot for your muscle tissue, right? And your recovery for your nervous system. Get a good protein in there, whatever you choose. Totally up to you, whether you choose, well, I'm not even going to give you the options. You know what I typically recommend. You can put some fruit in there. You don't have to do a lot. And, or you can even eat the fruit separately and shake up your shake. And when you're leaving practice, drink it in the car on the way home. And then you'll have time. It'll be the easiest thing to digest before bed and also the most nourishing. So that's 100% what I would do. Absolutely. It's the easiest to digest and it gives you the most recovery. No doubt about it. You need protein, you need fat, you need carbs. You don't need to overdo it, but that will be highly beneficial. All right. One more question from Danvi. Respected sir, I am Danvi and I'm 15 years old and I love your podcast. Now I want to ask you some doubts. Number one, if due the stimulation an electrical impulse is created, how can something like electricity travel from one neuron to 1,000 neuron without any loss of energy, just like with the help of chemicals called neurotransmitters? 2, I actually know how sensory receptor in the ear creates an impulse, but not sure how it carries the information when someone teaches someone something. Number 3, we studied control and coordination chapter this year, but despite this, I am still not able to understand how an organ like the brain can do an amazing process called thinking. How does it think? It's a great question. Really great question. So let's go through it just a bit. I'm going to just share a little bit of neuroscience. I've studied neuroscience. I'm not a neuroscientist nor expert in this area, but one of the 2 areas that I love teaching the most, that I think can help the most amount of people, are the digestion and the nervous system. And the nervous system, of course, affects the immune system and your hormones, right? So the HPA axis, your adrenals, your thyroid, it's all affected by your nervous system, your fight or flight or your parasympathetic nervous system. So let's go over that for you. So basically how the body works is, let's start with the brain. Right? And I'm going to make this quick, right? I won't go on too long for everybody. So we have our brain, and our brain is going to signal in its own neuronal pathway, so it's neuron to neuron, down the spinal cord, and then off of the spinal cord are additional nerves that innervate our entire body. So you don't need to think about when you take one step in front of the other in order to stay balanced. That's the amazing thing. When you think about it, all of a sudden you can grip something. Well, it starts here with a thought. It moves down the brainstem from neuron to neuron, and then it innervates the muscles of my fingers to be in the muscles of my arm to be able to hold on to whatever that object is or to walk in place. How the neurons work are they're their own individual cell bodies, okay? Think of it as like almost like a circular body, but not, right? Think of it almost like a octopus and has all these legs. The legs are called dendrites, right? So basically it has a cell body, it has its own nucleus, and then it has little finger-like structures that looks like almost like branches off of a tree, and they get smaller and smaller. Those branches then touch the next neuron, right? And the next neuron is what's called synaptic terminals or synaptic cleft, and it sends an electrical impulse from those through the cell body, through the dendrites, to the next neuron, which has a little tail. And the tail is covered by the myelin sheath. You probably heard me talk about a lot about that with MS and autoimmune issues, covering what's called the Schwann cells. And those cells are basically sending the right information then down through those dendrites again, and then it repeats the process. And it does that super fast through the whole body in order to be able to make my arm move like this, be able to grip something, be able to tilt my head, or be able to walk and stay balanced. So that's the basic process of sending signals throughout the body. I can't go too much more in depth than that, but that's basically how our nervous system works, how we get the thoughts down the brainstem, through the spinal cord. It innervates nerves off of the spinal cord, and it actually correlates with all the different organs and muscles of our body. And it, believe it or not, even induces either fight or flight or rest and relax that parasympathetic nervous system. So hopefully that was helpful. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into the show. I appreciate you. Of course, feel free to share the show with anyone you believe it could serve. And I'll be back tomorrow answering 6 more of our community's questions. Take care. Thank you, as always, for tuning into today's Cabral Concept. I appreciate you, and as a valued listener, I want to make sure that you know about my favorite products, things that my family enjoys every single day. I try to introduce you to those, to functional medicine-based lab testing that you can do right at home, like I do for my children with food sensitivity tests, our minerals and metals tests, heavy metals, and so much more. But also, I like to share with you some of the fun things that we do as well. One of those is enjoying a superfood chocolate bar every now and again. My daughters love these superfood chocolate bars, and so does my wife. The nice thing is these are just 90 calories, but what it does is it substitutes for some of that other dark chocolate or chocolate bars that you might be eating that don't necessarily contain all of the antioxidants and superfoods that you could be getting. So now you can actually satisfy that sweet tooth while doing something healthy for your body as well. And that is exactly why we formulated and created these superfood chocolate bars. And that's really what they are. They're a single serving, individually wrapped, so you can actually partition how many you're going to have. That enables you to get all of the healthy antioxidants of apples, chocolate, cherry, and raspberry. Really, it tastes like a cherry chocolate bar. Or raspberry chocolate bar, if that's something that you enjoy, we are giving them away right now for free. But not just one, we're giving the entire box away. So that means you get 9 superfood chocolate bars with all qualifying orders right now over at Equalife. If you've never tried them before, you absolutely have to check them out. So whether you buy them individually or you actually get a free box sent to you, we would love to do that. Head on over to StephenCabral.com/shop. StephenCabral.com/shop. That will take you right over to these superfood chocolate bar offer page, and you'll be able to see if you qualify for your free box. Thanks so much. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon.